Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're consuming the podcast from. My name is Jesse, and welcome to another episode of Startup Confessions with Jesse. And today we have a very, very special guest. It's someone that has dissected through a lot of things in life, and I'm sure she's going to be sharing her personal experiences with us. And I'm very, very sure if you are sitting right there watching, you need to get a biro and probably, a notebook to take down a lot of things because she's going to be sharing from past experiences. And today, before I go deep in, we are face to face with Marion Nixon. And before I allow Marion to take over, I would like to give you a brief breakdown of who Marion is. Now, Marion is a transformation mindset coach, and she's going to be sharing more about that in this episode. With over 25 years of experience in complementary health and trauma-informed emotional freedom techniques. Amazing. Marion helps professional and business women break free from self-doubt, emotional baggage, and limiting beliefs so they can build deeper inner confidence, self-worth, and clarity. Ladies and gentlemen, Marion in the house. Hi, Marion. How you doing?
Hi, I'm doing well. Thank you. That was quite an introduction.
Amazing, And just let's just go straight into it. Just give us a little backstory on who you are, how you started off. Let's just hear the inner part of the story.
Well, there were things in my life that led me to the point of doing this. But the turning point, the real critical turning point was I was retrenched from my 9-to-5 job and was filled with anxiety and went back the next day to clear my desk. And on the way in, I said I was very anxious. I was upset. I was embarrassed to go back and tell people I'd been retrenched and was leaving. And then underneath all that turmoil, as I walked up the road, I suddenly realized underneath it, I was glad. I had been unhappy in that job for several years, but I was trapped by the salary. And now I had been paid to leave. And that thought, instead of the shame, I've been retrenched, I wasn't good enough, all of that stuff, suddenly I realized I'd been paid to leave a job I didn't like. And suddenly everything changed. And I was able to walk into the building with my head high and just say goodbye to my colleagues and leave. And I realized the importance that shifted my emotional state so quickly. And that was the beginning of my awareness of the power of mindset. Up until then, it had been just a theory with me. But that was when I realized just how powerful your thoughts are. And I saw that also in that within 6 months, I had turned my hobby aromatherapy business into a full-time practice. And a friend of mine who was retrenched just a little while before I was still angry, still upset, and still income insecure. He had work, but it was not secure. And I thought, wow. And he's actually had 8 months. I'm 6 months. And I know what I'm doing. I can move forward from here. And he's still in turmoil because he was still angry. And that was the start of my awareness of mindset. I didn't start working directly with mindset myself until a few years later when I discovered emotional freedom techniques. And that is a tool that shifts mindset very quickly and very effectively.
Amazing. So tell us a bit about these, emotional freedom techniques. Many of us listening right now don't have any single idea what that means.
Well, I'm amazed how many people will sort of look a bit puzzled and then they say, oh, is that tapping thing? Yes, it is that tapping thing where you tap on your head like this. But if you've really absolutely not heard of it at all, um, it's often abbreviated to EFT, emotion, but it stands for Emotional Freedom
Yeah.
Techniques. I put an S on the end of techniques because over the years, it was developed around the 1980s. I encountered it around, it was 2004. And even since then, in the last 20 years, it has morphed into a whole variety of ways of using it, and also at ways in which it's been adapted and is used differently from a slightly different way of using it to the original. It comes out of acupuncture originally. The points that we tap on are acupuncture points.
Okay.
If you know anything about acupuncture, it's based on an energy system of energy lines that run through your body, and your vital energy flows along those lines. When there's a blockage on one of them, it causes a disruption to your energy flow and can cause emotional and eventually physical problems. And that's a sort of very brief version of Chinese medicine there, but it has worked so it's much more complex than that, but that's a sort of enough to get the idea of why you tap by tapping on these points. You actually release the blockages to the flow of energy through your system, and that releases the symptoms of negative feelings and emotions. It has worked so effectively for things like particularly trauma that around the world, but it started in the States. There were a lot of research started being done because psychologists wanted to be able to use it and get their CPD points, and so they wanted it to be recognized. So they started doing research, and it shows. And so what has happened? They see from brain scans with people before and after and during, people tapping. It calms down the amygdala, the part of the brain that controls your emotional reactions. Specific, and we all know about fight, flight, and freeze, and that's part of under the control of the amygdala. So anytime you're feeling upset, agitated, anxious, or any of those kind of upset feelings, your amygdala is in high reaction. So by tapping, you calm the amygdala down, so your body stops getting those high alert signals, and you're thinking about the thing that upset you, and your brain changes the neural connections so that you're no longer connecting let's call it anger with the memory. I like to think of it like I think in pictures. And for me, the picture I use is a doorbell, where something's happened in the past, you've got this memory, and every time something triggers it, even if you don't have a conscious recall of the memory, you have an emotional response to something, to what's happening. And so the trigger, we'll call, is the button, and it sets off the alarm bell. It puts you gets you agitated into fight or flight. Most therapies will try and mute the alarm signal, or if they will teach you just to keep going and ignore it. EFT cuts the wire. And then there's an advanced version of EFT, which uses a lot of visualization. And the way I look at that is it takes the wire from the trigger, from the button, and it connects it to a new bell. And so when that memory is triggered, instead of getting the old alarm signal, you get a supportive signal, one that you have programmed in yourself, that this is how I want to react. And I had one client who had been on a workshop around procrastination. She was a
Okay.
new coach, and she was wanting to work with children. She had planned to contact schools, but she kept putting it off because she didn't feel confident enough. After that workshop on procrastination, she contacted me to say, I have contacted all this. I've changed that inner voice to tell me that I've got this, and I've got 4 interviews booked. For 2 months, she had done nothing. And in 1 week, she
Amazing.
got four interviews booked.
Wow.
So,
That's great.
mhm.
That's really great. And honestly, this is the first time I'm hearing that emotional freedom techniques. This is the first
Oh,
time,
okay.
and thank you so much for for breaking it down. Is so many of us watching need to be science inclined to understand what it means. Shall we talk about amygdala? We'll talk about the brain. So thank you so much for breaking that down. But tell us a bit about mastering your mindset. I was reading through your bio before the show, and you spoke a little about mastering your mindset. Can you give us a brief breakdown of what you mean by mastering your mindset?
It's controlling that inner voice.
Okay.
Because so often when we start to do something new or challenging, we have, sometimes it's just a feeling. Sometimes we actually hear the words of,
Okay.
can you really do this? Are you good enough? What happens if you make a mistake? What happens if this happens or it goes wrong, or what? All of those things that create self-doubt, and they
Yes.
stir up anxiety, and you end up procrastinating and not doing thalso, or you go into what I call trying mode, where you're allowed, you say, I'm trying it, but just using that word, you're also already allowing yourself to not succeed, because
Mm-hmm.
well, I tried. If it didn't work, you say, well, I tried. When
Yeah.
it's instead of being able to put everything into it. And so changing that way of thinking away, and that inner voice, that says the stories you tell yourself about what's going to happen, what will happen, and whether you're capable or not. For instance, at one point of my life, I had a small company I worked for, it closed down, and then I joined another company, and they had a change of director, and my job became redundant, so I was laid off. And so that was I'd gone through it in 2 years. I'd lost 2 jobs. And I was out of work for a couple of months, and I found work. And every time my new boss said, come to my office, I used to walk along the passage with my knees shaking, because I was terrified I was going to lose another job. And that was
Oh,
the
I can
story.
imagine.
That's it. But that was the story I was telling myself, is that when my boss says, come and see me,
Yeah.
he's going to fire me. But he
Exactly.
never did. But I was taking my past history and making it a present reality, and it was not true. So that's what I mean. If I had said, oh, that was then, this is now, this boss is really nice, and he's and I could have changed the story and released myself from all of that anxiety. So that's what I help people do, is change the stories that you tell yourself, and those
Okay.
things that come out of past experience, where a lot of it
Exactly.
are in early childhood. If you don't get enough validation, if you get a lot of criticism instead of praise, then you will grow up feeling insecure and always looking to other people to tell you that you're okay.
Yes, true.
And
You're right.
with emotional freedom techniques, we can actually go in, we can reframe that. And in doing that, we actually rewire your brain. so that your subconscious mind no longer feeds you those negative stories.
Wow. Honestly, this is
There's
so expository because yeah, because so many of us go through this every single day. When you've had like entrepreneurs, when they've had the first no, when they've been discouraged, maybe someone, said they're not going to give them business, and then they try the first time, try the second time. Then by the time you're going the third time, there's that feeling that they're going to get another no, right? So this same limiting belief, enters into their mind and then affects them in every move they make. So thank you so much for opening our eyes towards that, because this is serious. This is honestly serious. So how do you really help women? Because I read through your bio where you're focused more on women, but how do you really help them?
Well, yeah,
You
I
know?
focus on women, obviously, because being one, I can identify very much with their experience, but I do have men clients as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I've had clients, let me say, with a client that I had who was a realtor, a real estate agent, and
Okay.
she'd had a corporate sort of admin job in a company, and she'd been laid off.
Okay.
And her dream job had always been to be a realtor, and she wanted not just to sell houses, she wanted to be an award-winning realtor. So she plucked up her courage to, instead of looking for another office job, she trained to become a realtor. And when I met her, when she contacted me, she had realized that she was not making the money that she wanted. So she had thought she would earn more money than in an admin job in a company, but she was still just scraping by and not able to support. She's a single mother, not able to support her son as well as she wanted to.
Okay.
So she came to me to build her self-confidence. And so we looked at some of the issues that she was wanting that she had. And she told me that she was been selling what I call middle income houses. So the commission on them
Okay.
wasn't high. And she now had an opportunity to sell a waterfront property. And whatever the waterfront is, wherever it is, it's always going to be more expensive than anywhere else in
Definitely.
the vicinity. So she now had this
Definitely.
waterfront property that she'd been asked to sell. And she said, but I've never sold such an expensive house. And I know that there's special regulations around the waterfront, but I don't know what they are. So we tapped around her confidence. And the second week she came to me and said, I've realized that the only difference between selling the houses I'm used to selling and this one is the price. The paperwork's all the same. But she'd been so anxious prior to our first session that she hadn't been able to see that. So now she said,
Yeah.
okay, now she can take the sale. So by week 3, she had made the sale. And she'd really gone out of her way to help the people. And in the process of doing that, she'd had to contact people. Oh, that's right. I said to her about the regulations. She said, oh, I know where to find that information. So I said, well, that's fine. You don't have to have it in your head. If you know where it is, get it and pass it on. And then so she sold the house. She was in the process. She had to contact some of the neighbors about it. There was a gravel road involved, and the neighbors had to chip in to have it graded. And she had contacted the person who actually owned the tractor that did the grading. And it was raining, and the Pantechnicon of these people, the new owners, had got stuck in some mud. And so she had to go and find this tractor owner to come and pull the Pantechnicon out. And in the process of doing that, he said to her, oh, I've also got some waterfront property I'd like to sell. Will you sell it for me? So she went from one house to another one. And she said that one house, that first house she sold, gave her a third of her annual income for the previous year.
Wow. Amazing.
So
That is amazing.
now that she now had a second one, she was going to be smiling financially.
Mhm.
And that was in 4 weeks of doing EFT. She turned her life around like that because she just got the confidence to see what she was capable of.
So would you say most entrepreneurs are actually, enemies of themselves? Their
I
minds are
won't
enemies
say
to them.
most, but I wouldn't say most but there are a lot of people who don't have that inner confidence. And I think
Yeah.
particularly with women, perhaps women 40 plus, when you're starting to go into perimenopause, there's also
Yeah.
you start to reevaluate your life and what you've
Mm-hmm.
achieved and what you still want to achieve. And for some women, also by the time they get to mid 40s, their kids are independent or semi-independent. They may even have left home, and if a
Yeah.
lot of their life has been organized around caring for their kids, then they suddenly have all this time, all this energy, and they don't know what to do with it. Or they've kept a sort of mundane job going because it gave them the flexibility to look after their kids.
Okay.
Or they didn't have the energy for a high-powered job and looking after kids. But now that they suddenly that the family situation has changed, now they look at themselves and think, this isn't this isn't the kind of work I want to be doing. I want to do
Yes.
something that's more fulfilling, want to make more impact. Or I've always dreamed of doing something else, but circumstances just meant that I had to take whatever job I could get. So for women, it's often a time of reconsidering, and then they don't always have the
Yeah.
confidence to step into something new.
That's right. You're right. 100%. I think they call that I think they call that midlife crisis, that
Yes,
period
yes.
when
It's
they
not
begin to
always a crisis.
reevaluate.
It's a reevaluation of life. And I think some men have it as well. Um,
Yeah. So
mm,
many.
mm.
When they
You
get
know,
towards 50, 60s,
yeah.
they begin to reevaluate themselves, you know, what they've
Mhm.
actually achieved at that age and all that.
Yeah. And even if you've achieved a lot, and you're successful in the societal um, concept of success, maybe inside of yourself, you don't feel fulfilled. You want to do something that's more meaningful.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've been selling cars and you've made it, you've got rich selling cars, but you think there has to be more to life than selling cars. Something, so you want to do something that makes
Yeah.
the usual thing that people say, I want to give back to society. I want to make life better for other people.
Exactly. Touch the lives of people. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. And to some extent, I mean, he's selling people cars if that can make their life better. But if if that doesn't feel fulfilling to you anymore, then it's time to expand or to change. You don't necessarily have to stop doing what you're doing. You might find your fulfillment in something else on the side.
Something else.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Or you might want a complete change. It just depends on the
All right.
individual.
Okay. So tell us a bit more about procrastination. While you were speaking, you spoke about the client you once had, that had a challenge
Hmm.
with procrastination. So tell us a bit more about procrastination. How does it really limit people?
It stops people from taking action, and it can either stop you from taking action to the point that you actually miss opportunities, or it can slow you down so that you're always chasing deadlines. So your work is never the best you can do because it's always a rush job because you leave it till the last minute. And yeah, and also, it shows up in things, anxiety, thinking, sort of what you call sort of victim mode thinking, where you see obstacles in your way and you kind of blame that on external circumstances or other people, instead of saying, well, that's an obstacle, but what am I going to do to overcome it? You can say, oh, I can't do this because, that I'm waiting for information from that person, or, I can't get permission to do, the council won't give me permission to change my house so that I can run a business from it, or whatever it is. So you just let obstacles prevent you from moving forward. But my thing about procrastination is, people say, oh, it's a problem. It's not a problem. It's a symptom. There's a reason why you're procrastinating. And that is because in your subconscious mind, our brain is, the purpose of our brain is to keep us safe. But the information it relies on is always from the past. So it takes past information and tells you you can or can't do whatever you're going to do because it worked or it didn't work in the past. Okay. And so so it starts to give you that negative feedback about, what could go wrong? What if this happens? What if, all the bad stuff? And so then we stop, that holds you back. It creates anxiety and fear. And even if you push through it, you're not feeling confident. Yeah. Whereas if you can change that inner voice, so it actually gives you positive input rather than the negative stuff, then you stop procrastinating.
So most times procrastination is a symptom that spans from previous experiences, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And it goes back, when humans were still primitive and living in caves, and the biggest danger was what I call the local lion. You've got to know where the lion is so that you can stay safe. So it's more important to remember where the lion is than it is to remember where the pretty flowers are. And so that's why our brain is always feeding us the danger signals, because it's trying to keep us safe. But if you were having if you had to give a talk to, or a sort of, at primary school, it's not really a big talk, but you had to say something in front of the class, share something about it, and you forgot your words, and some of the kids laughed at you. There's a part of you that maybe said, I'm never going to do that again. And then
exactly,
when you're 30, you get 30 and you get promoted to a management position, and you have to do presentations to the board or something, and you break out into a cold sweat and you don't know why. Because you've forgotten when you were 7, you forgot your words and got laughed at. You don't remember it, but your body remembers it. And it says, you're going to stand up and talk in front of other people? No ways. That's dangerous.
I feel like, and so many people are going through this right now. A lot of people, they don't even know why they actually experience it. They don't know that their body is actually reacting to something that happened many years ago. So it's something that it affects everybody.
Yeah, it does. And the nice thing about EFT is you don't have to remember what happened. And you don't even have, and even if you do remember it, you don't have to tell me the story. All I need to know is, how do you feel? And I might also say, where in your body do you hold that feeling? And then we'll do the tapping until the intensity of the feeling comes down. And then I will say, well, how do you want to feel? Or if you have had a memory of a specific incident, I could say we can actually reframe what happened. And sometimes we can actually, with using that visualization technique I mentioned, you can actually rewrite what happened. So you imagine a different ending. So if, for instance, that thing at the school where you forgot your words, instead of the kids laughing at you, maybe you could imagine that the teacher sort of just gave you a hug and said, "That's okay." We all that happens to all of us sometimes. Sit down, and when you remember, you can come back and do it another time or something. Just be kind. And so you remember that. And so you create the feelings of that happy ending.
Okay.
And that overrides the original feelings.
Yeah,
Then
the
we
hurtful feelings.
the process where we say we imprint that into your body and your energy field, so that the next time you have to stand up and speak in front of a group of people, instead of getting that old anxiety, you'll get a feeling of it's okay, I can do this.
100%. Just, I want you to, in just a few minutes, could you just talk to a typical entrepreneur right now, who's going through this procrastination issue? How can they actually break that cycle, practically? Why, just listening to you right now, how can they
Okay,
break that
then
cycle of procrastination?
when they notice that they're putting something off, just stop and focus inward and say, how am I feeling?
Okay.
And then and you can actually even ask another interesting question. Say, when you've identified that feeling, say, how old am I? And
Okay.
that could sometimes will jump you back to, and what happened, the first number that pops into your head can be I did it once and I was thinking, and I said, well, how old am I? And there was 6. And I got so intrigued about, I know what happened when I was 6 that I kind of forgot about how I was feeling in the moment. And I was able to change my behavior. But it's when you, and then I would also say, normally a procrastination is based on some sort of anxiety, nervousness, that what you're going to do isn't feeling safe. Allow that feeling. Instead of trying to push it away, just say, okay, this is how I'm feeling about it. I don't know where this feeling is coming from, but for some reason, my body's telling me that this action I'm about to take is not safe. However, times have changed, and now if I don't take this action, I'm going to lose out on the business opportunity, new client, whatever it is that's going to happen. I'm going to lose out of it. So that, as one of my clients put it, the new lion is the procrastination, not. And so you talk, but once you've acknowledged that underlying feeling, it's easier and made it okay. Don't judge it. Don't tell it, it needs to be absolutely okay to feel like that. And then when you stop judging yourself, you'll find it's a lot easier to change how you feel, change your attitude towards what you're doing. So it's getting underneath the procrastination. Why am I procrastinating? But not in terms of a rational thing. What's the emotion underneath this? What is the feeling that's making me procrastinate? Mm-hmm. And there's actually a fun exercise as well. What you can do is actually that, but if you are aware of your inner voice that's telling you that it's feeding you negative information, you can imagine that that voice is a separate entity from you. Give it a face or even a body and have a conversation with it. Say, why are you doing this?
Wow.
Why are you saying these things to me? Why are you stopping me from
Wow.
doing this? Why are you telling me that I'm useless or, saying mean things to me? Normally and then imagine that it's actually answering you back. Normally that the answers you get would be something around, I'm trying to keep you safe. The last time you did
Yeah.
that,
You
you
made a
messed up.
mistake, you failed, you know.
And then you say, well, thank you for trying to keep me safe. But that was then, and now I actually need to take this action to stay safe. So if you want to keep me safe, you need to encourage me to take this action, not stop me from doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And then say, okay, if you're willing to do that, this is what I want you to say to me. So instead of feeding me what ifs and reminding me of past failures, tell me, as that one client used to say, you've got this, or trust yourself, or whatever message you want to get that will help you take action when you're feeling a bit anxious. Tell your inner critic what you wanted to say instead, so it stops being critical and actually becomes supportive.
Wow.
And
Wow.
it's not a one-off exercise. You need
Mm-hmm.
to keep doing that so that you start
Over
to
time.
retrain that inner voice. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much, Marion. Honestly, you have actually opened our eyes to a lot of things. I've never imagined procrastination from this perspective. And to everyone watching today, Marion said, turn that into an entity and have a conversation with it. And that way it helps you, in moving forward, because that way you can begin to counter those words that the entity is telling you, which is from your mind. And then it helps you to push further and, grow past procrastination. So, Marion, honestly, we've had an amazing experience having you on the show today. So many entrepreneurs watching right now are going with a renewed mindset, about themselves, about how they are going to push through, as they, try to push their business forward. And I must say, it's been amazing having you on the show. But I would like you to give one advice, just one advice before we go. Our time is almost up. But give one advice to an entrepreneur who is held down by limiting beliefs that he can't make it or she can't make it. Just give her one advice from your own personal perspective.
What's helped me the most, I think, was to stop judging myself. If I was
Okay.
feeling anxious or I was overwhelmed by something and I was nervous about doing new things or meeting new people or whatever, to actually allow myself to feel whatever I was feeling and to not judge it and when you validate the way that you're feeling, that becomes much easier to say, well, what do I actually want to feel instead? How do I want to handle this instead of procrastinating? But as long as you're judging yourself for feeling inadequate, anxious, nervous, whatever it is, that if you're judging that, you set up an internal tug of war, because that part of you is really
Yeah.
feeling that. And now you're telling it not to feel like that. And it's like a little child, when you tell the child to stop doing, to stop behaving in a certain way, it's resisting it. It doesn't want to do, you get opposition. And the same inside of yourself. If you keep telling yourself, trying to say it's not okay to be anxious or it's not okay to be angry, you're fighting yourself. So say, well, this is how I feel, and it's fine. A feeling is just a feeling. It's not, and say it's okay. Of course I feel like this. So that person really upset me, or of course I've never done this before, so of course I'm nervous about doing it. It's okay. and that when you make it okay, your body will relax, and
Okay.
it's almost like you feel that part of you is feeling heard. And then you can say, okay, now what are we going to do about this? How are we going to handle this situation? And then you can move forward without that internal tug of war.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Marion. It has been amazing having you on the show. We are excited. Thank you for that closing statement. Ladies and gentlemen, stop judging yourself. Stop
Yeah.
judging yourself. It has helped Marion to move forward. It will help you move forward if you break out of, judging yourself, procrastinating, move yourself, push yourself. And I'm very, very sure that you are going to make it. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's been amazing having Marion on the show. Marion, thank you so much. Where can we find you? Are you on social media? Okay. Are you on
LinkedIn
Instagram? Are
is
you
the
on Facebook?
best social. Yeah, LinkedIn is the best social media platform for me. And then
Okay.
also my website, which is https, the dots and slashes, Marion Nixon dot
Don't worry, we
coza.
know that.
Yeah. So Marion Nixon dot
marionnixon.co.za.
co.za.
marionnixon.co.za. Then on LinkedIn, Marion Nixon.
Yes, Marion Nixon, yeah, transformation mindset coach.
Amazing. Thank you so
The
much,
actual
Marion, for being
LinkedIn
on the
thing is
show.
Marion. I
We
think
really
it's
appreciate.
Marion Mindset Coach, I think is the actual LinkedIn URL. But if you just search for me on
Okay.
LinkedIn, you'll find me.
Okay. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. We have come to the end of today's episode. I'm very sure you learned a lot, and I'm sure, uh, I mean, we've Marion has opened our eyes to a lot of things. So if you were jotting down some stuff, you have a lot to read this weekend, right? So Marion, we would love to have you again some other time. Thank you so much for taking our time out of your busy schedule, for, to be with us and to expose the secrets of EFT and teach us about procrastination and working on mastering our mindset. So, guys, until next time, keep working on yourself, keep growing, and keep being the best version of yourself. So, until next time, guys, bye.
Bye.